Have you ever been surrounded by people, family, friends, or even strangers, and felt an overwhelming urge to leave? Not because you're lonely, but because something feels off. Your grandson is glued to his phone, your daughter can't stop scrolling, and the room feels more disconnected than together. They say staying social is key as we age, but why does it often feel like a chore? Why does staying home with a good book or tending your garden seem so much more appealing than another noisy gathering? Here's the truth. It's not just you. It's not just about age or technology. There are deeper reasons why being around people feels draining. Let's dive into the first one. 1. Finding peace in solitude. When did you start noticing that being alone feels better than being in a crowd? It's not about suddenly becoming antisocial. It's about finally recognizing what truly recharges you. That moment when you close your front door after a busy day, sink into your favorite chair, and feel your whole body relax. That's not loneliness. That's your body and mind telling you exactly what they need. Quiet time isn't about hiding from noise. It's about getting your strength back. That morning coffee alone, that evening with your book, that's not wasting time. That's how you recharge. For years, we pushed ourselves to be social because that's what everyone said we should do. Stay active, stay connected, they'd say. Like Betty, a 70-year-old former teacher who spent decades forcing herself to host weekly family dinners. I thought being a good mother meant always wanting company. Now I realize that needing quiet time doesn't make me a bad parent. It makes me honest. You see, some of us are like batteries that can only recharge in quiet. Being around people, even those we love, takes energy. Every conversation, every laugh, every response, it all costs something. And as we get older, we become better at recognizing when our energy bank is running low. We start noticing how certain social situations drain us faster than others. Take Tom, who recently retired from 40 years in sales. I spent my whole career being on, talking, listening, always available. Everyone thought I was naturally outgoing. Truth is, I was exhausted. Now, I've learned that a quiet afternoon in my workshop recharges me more than any social event ever could. Think about what actually makes you feel refreshed. Is it a noisy party with dozens of people talking over each other? Or is it a quiet morning with your coffee, watching birds in your garden? Maybe it's working on your hobby without interruption, or taking a peaceful walk alone. There's real power in finally admitting what feels right for you. The world isn't built for people like us. It celebrates the loud, the social, the constantly connected. But there's wisdom in recognizing your true nature. Every time you choose a quiet evening at home over a crowded event, you're not being antisocial. You're being true to yourself. Every time you decide to leave a gathering early because you feel your energy draining, you're not being rude. You're being wise. For our families reading this, when we say we need to leave early or prefer a quiet visit over a big gathering, we're not rejecting you. We're just finally being honest about what we need. The best conversations, the deepest connections, often happen in those calm, quiet moments when we're truly ourselves. Sometimes less really is more. Remember, needing solitude isn't a sign of age or antisocial behavior. It's a sign of self-awareness. And there's strength in that awareness, power in that peace. 2. When trust becomes fragile. Trust changes as we age, doesn't it? Not just because we've been hurt before, but because each experience has taught us something about human nature. That friend of 40 years who suddenly shares your private struggles at the senior center. The family member who makes light of your concerns. Each small betrayal leaves a mark, making us more cautious about who we let into our inner circle. Mary's story hits close to home for many of us. At 70, she thought she knew who her real friends were. We'd been through everything together: marriages, divorces, losing our parents, raising kids. Then one day, I overheard her mocking my forgetfulness to others at church. "She's really slipping," she said, laughing. 40 years of friendship, and she couldn't even talk to me directly about her concerns. It's not just about being hurt, it's about realizing how vulnerable trust makes us. When we share our fears about aging, our health worries, our daily struggles, we're not just sharing information, we're sharing pieces of ourselves. And at this stage of life, those pieces feel more precious, more fragile than ever before. We become more observant, too. We notice who remembers what we've told them, and who doesn't. Who asks about our health because they care, and who's just looking for gossip material. Who respects our boundaries, and who pushes past them. These aren't signs of becoming paranoid, they're signs of becoming wise. James, 75, learned this the hard way after his wife passed. I was lonely, vulnerable, thought I'd found a good friend who understood what I was going through, shared everything with her. Later found out she was telling everyone at the senior center details about my grief, my finances, everything. Now I take my time getting to know people. Trust is earned, not given. This new cautiousness isn't about building walls, it's about building better boundaries, about understanding that not everyone deserves access to our deepest thoughts, our private struggles, our intimate fears. Some people earn the right to know us deeply, while others are better kept at a comfortable distance. Trust is like good china. When you're young, you use it every day. When you're older, you learn to save it for people who deserve it. For those who wonder why we've become more private or reserved, understand that our caution comes from experience. We're not cold, we're careful, we're not withdrawing, we're being selective. Because at this stage of life, we've learned that peace of mind often comes from choosing carefully who we let into our inner world. Trust isn't gone, it's just grown wiser. And sometimes, the wisest trust is the kind that develops slowly, tested by time and proven by actions rather than words. 3. When you're around the wrong people. It's not that you don't want to be around people anymore, it's about who those people are. After all these years, you've become finely tuned to how different types of people affect you. Some leave you feeling refreshed, while others, well, you find yourself watching the clock, counting the minutes until you can leave. You know the types. There's the non-stop talker who turns every conversation into their personal monologue. Like Margaret at church, who can spend 2 hours talking about her health problems without taking a breath, let alone asking how you're doing. Or Bob from the senior center, who turns every discussion into a complaint session about his kids, his neighbors, the government, everything. Then there are the energy vampires, a term that might sound dramatic until you've spent time with one. These are the people who somehow manage to drain every ounce of your emotional energy. I used to feel guilty about avoiding Jane, says Tom, 73. She's been my neighbor for 20 years. But every time I talk to her, I need 2 days to recover. Everything's a crisis, everyone's against her, and somehow I always end up feeling responsible for making her feel better. What's really exhausting isn't just their behavior, it's the emotional labor required from you. The constant nodding, the sympathetic sounds, the feeling that you need to manage their feelings while suppressing your own desire to just walk away. At this stage of life, you've earned the right to ask, is this really how I want to spend my limited energy? Even when people aren't overtly draining, there's the issue of mismatched expectations. The friend who insists you need to get out more when you'd rather read at home. The family member who calls your preferences antisocial because you prefer one-on-one conversations to big gatherings. They mean well, but they don't understand that what energizes them might be exactly what depletes you. David, 70, recently made a decision that surprised his social circle. I stopped going to my weekly men's breakfast group after 15 years. Everyone said I was isolating myself, but all they did was complain and gossip. One morning, I looked around the table and thought, I don't want to become bitter like this. Sometimes avoiding certain people isn't isolation, it's self-preservation. The wisdom of age has taught us something valuable. Not all social connections are created equal. Some nurture our spirits, while others deplete them. It's not about being antisocial or unfriendly. It's about recognizing that at this stage of life, we have the right, maybe even the responsibility, to choose our company wisely. So no, you're not becoming a hermit. You're not too picky or hard to please. You're simply being selective about who gets to share your time and energy. Because you've learned what many never do. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from relationships that no longer serve your well-being. 4. When social anxiety gets heavier. Have you noticed how your body reacts differently to social situations now? Your heart pounds just thinking about that upcoming family reunion. Your hands get shaky before neighborhood gatherings. Your stomach ties itself in knots hours before you need to leave. These aren't just feelings. They're your body's real physical responses to social stress. What makes it worse is how these physical symptoms feed our fears. When your hands shake, you worry about holding that coffee cup. When your voice quivers, you stress about telling stories. When you feel short of breath, you worry others will notice. Each physical reaction adds another layer of anxiety, making simple social interactions feel like running a marathon. Barbara, 68, describes it perfectly. In big groups now, my heart races so much I can hear it in my ears. My throat gets tight, making it hard to talk. Then I worry about looking nervous, which makes everything worse. I used to love these gatherings. Now I spend half my time in the bathroom just trying to breathe. The anxiety builds in layers. First comes the physical discomfort, the racing heart, the tight chest, the sweaty palms. Then the mental strain kicks in. You worry about hearing clearly in noisy rooms, about following fast conversations, about remembering names and faces. Your body tenses, making that arthritis flare up. Your mind races, making you forget what you were about to say. Each social interaction becomes a test of endurance. Can you maintain a conversation without showing how anxious you feel? Can you keep up with group discussions when your heart's pounding in your ears? Can you look engaged when all your energy is going to managing your physical symptoms? The cruel part is how it becomes a cycle. The more we worry about these reactions, the stronger they get. We start avoiding situations that might trigger them, not because we don't want to see people, but because managing both the physical and emotional stress becomes exhausting. Here's what's important to remember. These reactions aren't signs of weakness. They're your body and mind working overtime to handle situations that have become more challenging with age. Understanding this doesn't make the anxiety go away, but it helps us be gentler with ourselves about it. 5. Standing strong in your self-worth. Let's face a hard truth. Sometimes the real reason we pull away from people isn't about them at all. It's about us. About those moments when we wonder if we still matter in a world that seems to move faster every day. When did we start feeling like we need to apologize for our pace, our preferences, our hard-earned way of seeing the world? Think about it. We've managed businesses, raised families, navigated life's biggest challenges. We've made tough decisions, survived hard times, built lives worth being proud of. Yet somehow we find ourselves questioning our worth because we can't keep up with today's pace, or because our values seem old-fashioned to younger generations. Robert, 73, puts it perfectly. I ran my own company for 30 years, made decisions that affected hundreds of people. Now I see that look of impatience when I take my time making simple choices. But you know what? My careful thinking saved my business during 2 recessions. I'm not slow, I'm thorough, and that's not something to apologize for. Our worth isn't measured by how quickly we can adapt to change. It's built into the wisdom we've earned, the lives we've touched, the storms we've weathered. Those moments of doubt, they're not signs of weakness. They're opportunities to remind ourselves of our true value. Margaret, 69, recently had an awakening. I used to feel embarrassed about how I take my time with decisions, how I prefer quiet conversations to big events. Then my granddaughter came to me with a serious life problem. She said, "Grandma, I need your wisdom on this." That's when it hit me. What others might see as old-fashioned, the younger generation often sees as valuable. The truth is, we've earned every bit of who we are. Every line on our face, every careful consideration, every preference for depth over speed. These aren't flaws to fix. They're badges of honor. They're proof that we've lived, learned, and grown wise enough to know what truly matters. So the next time someone makes you feel less than because you prefer traditional ways, or take your time, or choose careful consideration over quick decisions, remember this: your worth isn't in how fast you can go. It's in the depth of your understanding, the richness of your experience, and the wisdom of knowing that some things can't be rushed. You're not falling behind. You're standing strong in who you've become. And that person, with all their carefully earned wisdom and thoughtfully formed preferences, is exactly who you're supposed to be. Think about it. Your changing relationship with social interaction isn't a sign of something wrong. It's a reflection of everything you've learned about what truly matters in life. You're not becoming antisocial. You're becoming selective, wise, true to yourself. Every reason we've talked about, your need for quiet moments, your careful approach to trust, your awareness of energy-draining people, your natural concerns in social situations, and yes, your deepening understanding of self-worth, they're all parts of the same story. The story of someone who's lived long enough to know what they need and what they don't. So the next time someone questions why you're not as social as you used to be, stand firm in this truth. You're not pulling away from life. You're choosing to live it on your own terms, and there's profound wisdom in that choice.